altar boy from Belgium joins the jihad in Syria.
We have to implement the Sharia. It's a must.
And swears allegiance to ISIS, along with hundreds of other Belgians.
If you had been asked to execute someone, would you have done it?
That's the Islamic law.
Part of an unlikely pipeline to terror from the heart of Europe.
It's like they are vampires who are smelling blood.
This is the story of why they go.
It was a period of the five-star jihad where all was brilliant and life was glorious, so everybody wanted to go.
And what happens when they come home?
Islam is growing in Europe, and we're going to take over.
So Europe lives in fear, not sure who comes back to live and who comes back to kill.
That's a lot of killing power.
It's the story of an ordinary kid who joined the most brutal terrorist group in the world.
We are Muslims who are dreaming of a caliphate. So it will happen. It's a promise of Allah.
A summer concert in Belgium. This is the heart of Western Europe, a magnet for tourists from all over the world. Charming, grand, the picture of old world wealth and elegance. This is the other side of Belgium, home to some of the most dangerous radicals anywhere. Religious fanatics who want to replace Belgium's democracy with an Islamic state or caliphate, ruled under the most radical form of Sharia law.
Every Muslim on earth believes that democracy is evil and Sharia is the good.
They're not just preaching, they're also recruiting for the world's most reviled terror group, ISIS. At least 540 Belgians have gone to Syria and Iraq to fight jihad, say researchers. Per capita, that's more than any other Western European country. Meet Eunice Delafortri, a 28-year-old ISIS veteran. Eunice offers a rare insight into the mind of an unrepentant ISIS supporter.
We are Muslims who are dreaming of a caliphate. Every Muslim in the world, even if he has a beard from 1 meter to 1 millimeter, a Muslim has to believe in a caliphate.
That dream led Eunice to the civil war in Syria and to ISIS. He says he never killed anyone there.
Let me ask you something. If you had been asked while you were in Syria to execute someone, would you have done it?
Look, in Islam, there's the Pledge of Alliance.
Would you have done it?
Because you have to obey the Emir.
So you would have?
That's the Islamic law. And believe me, it's not a funny thing to execute people. It's something terrible, but yeah.
Now he's back, one of more than 100 Belgians who have returned from Syria and Iraq, graduates of ISIS and other extremist groups. Here, now, walking the picturesque streets of Belgium.
We have to implement the Sharia. That's a must.
So do you think, we hear from a lot of people who support ISIS that they believe that this ideology will spread to Europe and across the whole world. Do you believe that?
It's already here. I said it before. It's already here. You cannot hide Islam. The ideology is Islam.
But people will want to know, would you ever participate in a terrorist attack?
Why should I? I'm here to live.
So that's a no.
It's not on my agenda.
But Eunice and those like him are what Europe fears most.
People who come back after they are hardened and after they are trained in Syria are very dangerous people when they want to attack.
A lesson Belgium has learned the hard way. A year ago, ISIS murdered 32 people here and injured 300 others.
The two locations in Brussels, one at a crowded subway station in the center of the Belgian capital, the other at Brussels' main airport.
And remember what happened 4 months earlier in Paris. A massacre organized by ISIS operatives from across the border in Belgium.
The whole of Europe is going to suffer because of this, but the problem originates from Belgium.
Belgium is one of 26 European countries with open borders that allow people to move and work freely. But crossing those borders, you can see how easily terrorists can also exploit that freedom.
We're now driving from Belgium into France. I do have my passport with me, but I won't actually need it because essentially there is no checkpoint here. It's a free and open highway. It's like driving from Nebraska into Kansas. And in fact, the only way you can even tell that you've moved into another country is because the cell phone carrier changes.
So this is Belgium's new normal. Soldiers and heavily armed police on patrol day and night, even as ISIS supporters are hidden in plain sight.
And the most frightening thing, thousands of young European people think that ISIS is cool.
That's right, they think ISIS is cool. And Younes Delafortri is one of them. He was actually raised Catholic. Baptized as Michael, he even became an altar boy.
We were raised like normal Catholic people with the holidays. On Sunday, we thank God, and that's the way it is.
As Younes tells it, his journey from the mainstream to the margins of hell began with a troubled adolescence, smoking weed and trying harder drugs. His salvation, as he sees it, was discovering this book, The Way of the Muslim, a detailed guide to living a pious life every hour of every day. He converted to Islam and changed his name to Younes, Arabic for dove. He saw his new religion as a step up from Christianity.
I can compare it with buying a computer. If you know there's a Windows 10, you don't gonna go on Windows XP.
So you saw converting to Islam as an upgrade?
It's an upgrade, yeah.
Upgrading opened the doors to Belgium's large Muslim community, where a small but vocal subset of Islamic fundamentalists was emerging. Younes joined their ranks, attracted by the simplicity of a world where identity is based solely on religion.
As a Belgian,
I'm not a Belgian, I'm a Muslim.
you're not Belgian?
No, I'm a Muslim.
So you don't feel that Belgium has given you anything?
No.
Actually, Belgium has given him something: money. About $500 a month, a welfare check.
I'm going to get my money from the government. If they want to keep me here, they have to pay.
An AK-47 BB gun is a small symbol of his defiance.
Ik ben altijd wel gefascineerd geweest door wapens.
In some ways, Younes is not that different from other young Belgians. He likes to play video games and banter with his younger brother.
Eerlijk zie je me dat doen niet echt. Nee. Je gaat 2 dagen zitten.
But in the next breath, he can simply shrug off the gruesome public executions that ISIS proudly claims as its trademark, beheading journalists like Jim Foley and Steven Sotloff.
Journalists who are going to war zones, they are not over there to glorify ISIS. They're there to make bad propaganda about the Muslims and Islam.
And that would include me, presumably.
When we come back, the petty criminal turned street preacher who inspired Younes.
Islam is growing in Europe, and we're going to take over anyway.
And later, Younes on trial walks free.
Just like any other citizen of this country. So we're lucky.
And shopping for an assault rifle on Belgium's black market. When Younes Delafortry, a former Catholic altar boy in Belgium, converted to Islam, he says it brought stability to his chaotic life.
You're searching your identity like everybody else in the world.
His search led him to Syria to join the world's most violent terror group, ISIS. And then back to Europe, a zealous soldier of God.
You can hold back and do your prayers and be satisfied, or you can go further and try to practice what you're learning. And that's the difference between, like they say, the moderate one.
Why do you make a face when you say moderate?
I don't believe in a moderate Islam.
Younes's spiritual guide was Fouad Belkacem, a silver-tongued Svengali who masterminded one of the most effective networks in Western Europe for recruiting jihadists.
We believe that the Sharia will dominate. The Sharia will be implemented worldwide.
Belkacem is a car salesman turned street preacher with a criminal record that authorities say includes assault, drug dealing, and hate speech.
We believe that Allah is the legislator. Allah makes the laws. He is the one who tells us what's allowed and what's forbidden.
In 2010, Belkacem formed an organization called Sharia for Belgium. He used Belgium's freedom of speech to trash democracy and advocate strict Islamic law.
Democracy is the opposite of Sharia and Islam. And the Muslim that says he's against Sharia, he's not a Muslim, it's impossible. It's the same thing as saying I was speaking to a Christian Jew or to a Jewish Muslim or something like that. It's impossible.
Belkacem's vision of a utopian society appealed especially to young idealists.
Sharia implemented worldwide, that means no more criminality, no more drugs, no more raping, no more pedophilia, no more economic crisis.
Simple. Kom niet als een moslim.
It's like they are vampires who are smelling blood.
Dimitri Bontink's son Yuyun joined Sharia for Belgium in 2011.
We were just like hopeless.
The old Yuyun was a typical teenager, even competing on a TV talent show as a Michael Jackson impersonator. But moonwalking was a world away from the new Yuyun.
First of all, he stopped it with to eat Western food. Second, going to the mosque. He became very religious, you know, not shaking hands to women anymore. He started to take distance step by step from his own family, from his own parents. So all what we built, what we created, it was gone like snow for the sun, you know.
Did you try to talk to him about it?
Of course, absolutely. So many times we were asking the questions, is there something we can help you with? Did we do something wrong? Did we fail as parents?
Dimitri finally got some answers by chance when he saw Belkacem on the evening news standing above Yuyun at a Sharia for Belgium rally.
The American dream, 29 lidstaten hebben goedgekeurd dat een mens intieme relaties mag hebben met dier, bestialiteit.
Dimitri took a bold step and invited Belkacem to his house to confront the man he believed had brainwashed his son.
I never have met someone who is so charismatic and so intelligent. It's like the devil was sitting on my table, believe me.
Pour moi, c'est un monstre.
18-year-old Nora Verhoeven was also taken in by Belkacem. Her mother, Samira, says Nora was an idealist, determined to make a difference, but lost.
Et eux, ils vont jouer. Moi, je pense qu'ils ont joué sur ça et sur ces jeunes-là. Ils vont les étudier. Moi, je pense qu'ils ont étudié Nora.
Samira, like most of Belgium's Muslims, sees jihadist recruiters like Belkacem as a grave threat.
Pour moi, il ne représente pas notre religion, il ne représente pas notre islam. Il la modifie, il la change et il la rend que haine. Que haine.
But Belkacem's version of Islam struck a chord with some young Muslims. Many face discrimination in education and jobs, and live in culturally isolated worlds.
The level of exclusion in this country and the level of animosity and the discourse of people in power towards the Muslim community in this country. Belgium is at the bottom of Europe.
It led to a deep sense of resentment, which Belkacem exploited.
On arrive pour reprendre ce qui nous appartient.
Yunus says Sharia for Belgium gave him a sense of purpose. He took to the streets and the internet, protesting Belgium's secularism with its ban on full facial veils for women and even headscarves for Muslim schoolgirls.
De ongelovigen trachten het licht van Allah te doven. Walakin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala maakt het licht alleen maar sterker.
Over time, the Sharia for Belgium message became more extreme, the tone more hateful.
On arrive avec nos bombes atomiques d'Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
It was really becoming worrying.
Alain Winance was Belgium's top internal security official at the time. He foresaw a future of terror and bloodshed and rang the alarm. But political leaders were dismissive.
I heard as an answer that, these people are not extremely dangerous. You are facing a bunch of clowns with long beards and white gowns.
What was your response to that? You're the head of intelligence services. In your opinion, there's a legitimate threat here.
There is a bit of frustration. We saw that there was a bigger and bigger radicalization.
Winance turned out to be right. The Sharia for Belgium group was a pipeline to ISIS and other extremist groups in Syria's civil war, leaving behind desperate, heartbroken parents. Among those who went, Dimitri's son Yuyun.
Once your child is missing, when you know it's in hands of radical Islam and have gone left to Syria, it's a nightmare.
Yuyun would eventually return home and testify against Sharia for Belgium. As for Samira, she has not seen her daughter Nora since she left for Syria 4 years ago. Video posted on Nora's Facebook page shows a girl she no longer recognizes.
Je ne pleure pas que Nora. Je pleure tous ces jeunes, tous ces enfants qui sont partis.
But for Yunus, going to Syria was the answer to his prayers.
Finally, there's a place on earth where we can be a Muslim for the full 100%.
When we come back, life with ISIS.
It's better than living here. And that's the honest answer.
In December 2013, 25-year-old Yunus Della Fortri arrived in Syria. The country was 2.5 years into a brutal civil war. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was massacring his opposition.
The question is, what are we in the world going to do about it?
While the West wrung its hands over what to do and who, if anyone, to support, militant jihadist groups quickly moved in. Yunus joined the most violent of them all, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS.
They were clear in what they trying to accomplish, to go fight for the sake of Allah.
ISIS's unbridled brutality yielded huge gains on the battlefield. And the group would soon declare it had carved out a caliphate, the size of Michigan according to US authorities, ruled under its version of Sharia law. Yunus denies committing atrocities in Syria.
You didn't kill anyone while you were there?
No.
You didn't kidnap anyone?
Arrested somebody, that's not kidnapping.
Talking to him about his experience there, it's hard to fathom how anyone can endorse tactics so ruthless that even Al-Qaeda disavowed them. To which Yunus casually responds.
It's a war zone, so it's a normal thing, people die. It depends on which continent you are. In America, they're executing people with needles, with electric chairs. It's also execution.
Amid the rubble and death and chaos of the Civil War, there was an allure for young zealots.
Oh, my brothers, jihad is the way to bring back the honor of our glorious day.
The jihadi lifestyle looked cool, at least in the online postings. They presented themselves as God's warriors, Islamic badasses. And while street gangs in America flash their gang signs, jihadis here point one finger for one God, a sign of the Muslim proclamation of faith. La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. A message set to the soaring soundtrack of Islamic a cappella, known as nasheed.
You just needed to snap your finger and you had 2 recruits. It's definitely the feeling of brotherhood. Being in a community that helps you out. When you're in shit, they pull you out. When you need money for something, they help you out. The feeling of the belonging and the fact that they were taking part of a greater project. That you as a Muslim, you were suppressed all your life by illicit Western government who didn't abide the law of Allah. And now we have the chance to go fight for a caliphate. They felt that they were important.
Yunus says he was stationed in this villa, and that one of his assignments was guarding prisoners.
What kind of prisoners?
Like people who stole something, burglars or something like that. So they were being locked up, for example, 2 or 3 weeks in jail.
So no hands were cut off?
No, at that moment.
Were you disappointed?
No, of course. Everything takes its time.
Not all of his associates were so restrained. Hisham Shaib is one of Yunus's close friends. Here they are at a Sharia for Belgium rally. And here is Shaib more recently in an ISIS propaganda video. He stands above a man accused of spying. Then coolly, he pulls the trigger. And according to evidence gathered by Belgian intelligence, he was not the only one. One example, picked up on a phone tap, featured a young Belgian describing the day captured Syrian soldiers were summarily executed. Everyone cut someone's throat. Another Belgian phoned his girlfriend about shooting a kidnapped civilian who didn't pay the requisite ransom. I wish the filming worked when I killed him. I placed the camera badly and it filmed nothing.
Were you aware of the behavior of some of your other Sharia for Belgium colleagues who were bragging to their friends at home about shooting people in the face and cutting people's heads off?
They're young people.
Meaning?
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't brag about cutting someone's head off?
It's not the right thing to do, of course, but if you're doing something like that, or you're executing somebody, or you're killing somebody on the battlefield, keep it for yourself and Allah, because you're doing it for Him, not to brag out, of course.
But what were they doing cutting people's heads off in the first place? Or shooting people in the face?
You have to ask them. I'm not responsible for what they did.
Yunus deflects criticism of ISIS's brutality by pointing to the way American soldiers photograph themselves, taunting Iraqis in the Abu Ghraib prison, and urinating on dead Taliban fighters in Afghanistan.
It's also bragging. Eh?
Yeah, but we condemn that.
Yeah, we don't.
We say that's wrong.
We condemn that in front of our God. We don't condemn people in front of other people. We don't criticize Muslims in public.
After less than 2 months in Syria, Yunus returned home to see his wife and children. An ISIS soldier back on the streets of Belgium.
And I'm doing whatever I can to spread out the word of Islam. That's my goal.
Non-violently, he says.
Not every Muslim with an ideology is a terrorist or is a potential time bomb who's going to explode in a shopping mall.
But that is exactly what has Europe on edge. Indoctrinated, committed radicals like Yunus, returning from Syria, have inflicted horrendous losses.
3 years ago, the main idea was, let's ignore them, let them leave. Right now, the idea is these guys coming back to kill us.
When we come back, as innocent people die in Europe's great cities, Yunus prays for the killers.
I ask Allah to protect them and give them what they ask for.
January 2014. Yunus, back in Belgium, is under arrest.
De reporter, ben je nieuwsgierig wat Belkacem gaat vertellen?
Along with other suspected members of Sharia for Belgium. The prosecutor charged it was a terror group with a pipeline to extremists in Syria and Iraq.
I didn't kill somebody over there. I didn't shot somebody over there.
Awaiting trial, Yunus spent 2 months behind bars with other radicals.
Every jail in Belgium has now 1 or 2 people with what they call extremist thoughts or with terrorism file.
Did you have ways of communicating with each other
Yeah,
in jail?
I had an open regime. We did cards evenings, we go playing football outside. It was not a punishment, to be honest.
More than 100 young men like Yunus were coming home, some disillusioned about ISIS and its horrific violence, others desensitized and trained to murder.
If you already passed the stage of ideas and communication into the stage of fighting for an organization, went there, trained, acquired the skills, and we have to have a very suspicious attitude. We shouldn't be naive.
But Belgium had been slow to grasp the danger. May 2014, a man walked into the Jewish Museum in Brussels and shot 4 people dead.
That was the first time that we had a serious terrorist attack on Belgian territory.
Police arrested and charged a 29-year-old French national. He denies being the killer. Authorities believe he had fought in Syria with ISIS.
It was kind of a moment where Belgium woke up because we saw a Frenchman acting in Belgium.
It was beginning to look like there was a terrorist highway between France and Belgium. But when it came to security, Belgium was wearing blinders.
There was not the sense of urgency that exists now.
The first recognition there were systematic problems came with the Sharia for Belgium trial in September 2014. Yunus was found guilty of participating in a terrorist group and given a 3-year suspended sentence, a punishment he flouts.
As long as I do nothing that's against national security, I can do whatever I want. Just like any other citizen of this country.
But you basically seem to be indicating that your punishment was a joke.
Of course. So we're lucky.
As for Sharia for Belgium's leader, Fouad Belkacem, the judge ruled he was a driving force, prepping young radicals for armed combat in Syria. And for that, 12 years in prison. It was vindication for the man who had sounded the alarm before most people took it seriously.
You could say that is a victory in the sense that when we warned a few years ago that Sharia for Belgium was a dangerous organization, a radicalization organization, an organization that helped people going to Syria, that we were on the right track at that time.
But the damage was already done. Several jihadist networks were entrenched in Belgium, ready to exploit Europe's open borders. Paris, November 2015. With a plot launched from Brussels, ISIS attacked.
Terror across Paris. It is a city under siege.
The death toll now stands at 118.
The world watched as the death toll mounted. And what did Yunus think about the attacks? He saw them as payback for France's role in the bombing campaign against ISIS.
It's a normal reaction. If you are attacking people, sometimes somebody will attack you back. If you spit in the air, sometimes the spit will fall back in your own face.
His sympathy is not with the victims, but the attackers.
I ask Allah to protect them and give them what they ask for. And that's everything what I can do.
So in a sense, you see them as heroes?
In a sense, it's to Allah to decide whoever is right and who is wrong.
4 months after the Paris attacks, March 2016. This time it was Belgium. Bombs in the subway and suicide attacks at the Brussels airport. Despite all the warning signs, Belgium was grossly unprepared. Yunus says it took several days for police to question him about the Belgium attacks because they couldn't find him.
Do you think they're keeping a close eye?
No, not close enough. Because with the attacks in Brussels, they were searching me because they didn't know where I was. They were calling at the doors of my sisters because they didn't know where I was staying. So,
do you find that shocking?
Shocking. It's a little bit funny, actually. It's a little bit funny.
When we come back,
we were blindfolded. We have now arrived at this place and we're supposed to see a weapon.
Just how easy it is for a terrorist to get one of these. Back in Belgium, Yunus is stuck in a secular, pluralistic world he despises. He is unrepentant about his time with ISIS in Syria.
Do you ever regret leaving?
I regret coming back.
You do?
Yeah. I want to live underneath the Islamic Caliphate, yeah. Underneath a system of Sharia. Is that a crime? No.
That profound detachment and disdain is what frightens authorities. And while they can guard the streets, they cannot patrol the vast internet, where any radical with a keyboard can open a recruitment center. To see how it works, we used a consultant to set up a Facebook page. With a nom de guerre, he posed as a lion of jihad, posting images that are popular with ISIS supporters. In just over a week, 223 total strangers wanted to be friends. The majority from Belgium and France. In their profile pictures, we found a sea of ISIS flags and praise for mujahideen, holy warriors. Several invited us to chat further on Telegram, an encrypted app used by ISIS. When we asked one, "Are you in Syria?" he told us no, unfortunately, but I want to go.
The youngest of all those clowns and the most innocent girl in those circles can be the next suicide bomber in a European street.
The most successful recruiters have a knack for customizing their pitch. In prisons, for example, religious radicals groom their cellmates with the promise of redemption through jihad.
It's like when you're drowning and you suddenly see that one single stick sticking out. Just grasp it. And they feel reborn when they come out.
Reborn with a radical cause and extensive criminal networks they can call on.
If you go out to Syria and if you have a dozen of criminal friends back here in Belgium, you only need to make a telephone call and say, "Hey bro, I'm coming back, I need something, I need a car, I need a safe house, I need a Kalashnikov," and it's like, "Okay bro, no problem."
Getting a weapon really is that easy, even though Belgium has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the West. After a few phone calls and secret meetings, we met a small-time drug dealer. He showed us an AK-47, like the ones used in the Paris attacks.
Combien de balles on peut mettre dans chaque magazine? 20. So he's saying that there are 20 bullets in each magazine, so that's a lot of killing power.
Black market price tag, he says, about $3,000. So who will win this battle? And how long will it take?
I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think that actions as those in Paris and in Belgium could and will probably happen again.
Yunus says he has no intention of attacking Europe. His focus is on the next generation.
Deze is Osama.
He named one of his sons Osama.
Did you name him after bin Laden?
Yep.
You did?
Yes. And I'm proud of it.
Why?
Because that man is a hero. What's the problem with that?
Well, he killed 3,000 people at a very conservative estimate.
Yeah. If we have to condemn everybody who killed people, hell will be full.
When we come back, he loathes Belgium's democracy, but gladly collects his government check.
I'm going to get my money.
There will always be a line between you and me, and that line is my religion.
Yunus Delafortri wants to live under Sharia law.
Nog wel aanvallen zullen komen naar de moslims.
He hates democracy. He even joined ISIS. But on this day, the ultimate paradox. It's payday at the welfare office.
I'm going to get my money from the government. If they want to keep me here, they have to pay.
But they're not paying any more. Recently, he got a job repairing bicycles. Even so, he embodies a serious dilemma for Belgium: how to distinguish free speech and religious liberty from life and death security threats.
You're feeling affinity with your people, and we are feeling affinity with our people.
He chooses his words carefully, voicing support for violent jihadists, but denying he would use violence himself. I might be inclined to believe him, but since we met Yunus, he's been convicted of domestic abuse. He's obviously capable of violence. Still, not every extremist becomes a terrorist, but it leaves authorities here with a major challenge: to work out which radicals really are ticking time bombs.
Do you think there'll be more attacks?
I think the risk is very high, yes.
In Belgium, the experts give a hodgepodge of prescriptions, and not always what you would expect. On the one hand, a secular Muslim writer calls for harsher punishments.
When it comes to people who link themselves to terrorists, I think we have to be very hard, zero tolerance, right?
While a former security chief says, respect due process.
It can be very frustrating, but we can't leave the surroundings of what the law allows us to do.
The vast majority of Muslims here reject ISIS and see extremism as a scourge that hurts their communities. But many feel increasingly alienated by the rise of right-wing parties and growing Islamophobia.
And that's exactly what is so frightening right now, that we are at this point exactly doing what the Islamic State wants.
What do you mean by that?
Islamic State wants to drive a wedge between Muslims and non-Muslims in the West. Wants Muslims not to feel at ease. They want them to be infuriated and to actually go out to join the Islamic State and carry out attacks.
It is a vicious cycle that will likely play out for years.
Do you see a future where Europe and the West will be under Sharia law?
It's a reality. It will happen. It's a promise of Allah.
Authorities can go after ISIS on the battlefield, but they cannot kill an ideology.